right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sam's Financial Corner. In today's episode, we're going to talk about starting a business. And I found this beautiful checklist online. It's really simple. You could type in starting a business checklist, and you should be able to find this or any other one you want to. And checklists like this are very important when we're starting a business because when you start a business, there's so many things that you want to do, there's so many things you're thinking about, and a checklist helps you to keep your thoughts organized and to do the things that you need to do that people oftentimes don't think about. And the reason I wanted to do this is because I was recently working with the client, and this client has been doing their business for a little bit, a while. And the client was kind of like, well, doing this, doing that all over the place. And not that the client was unorganized or anything like that, but I just think it's important to kind of have a point of reference of where to start. And so I wanted to share with you just the things that you can do. So if you're thinking about starting a business, here's the thing that you can do. And if I find this checklist again, I'll put a link in the description so you can just get right to it. So let's get into it. So, number one, research the business idea. It's very, very important to research the business idea, no matter what it is, whether it's something simple that everyone has done or everyone is doing, or whether it's niche and kind of complicated and complex. It doesn't matter. You need to research the business idea because the one thing you have to realize is you don't know everything. No one does. And when you're starting a new endeavor, there are going to be so many things that you don't think about. And so, what you want to do in research, and here are the top three things I think you should do when you research a business. Number one, look at someone who's doing something either exactly what you're doing and similar, and you can tell that they have a good following, they're very profitable. Look at what they're doing, look at their customer service, look at all of those things. It's very important to kind of see someone who is doing what you want to do successfully. So it'll give you more of an idea of how you want to frame your business, how you want to shape it, and what you want to do. Number two, look at someone who has either failed or is going through tough times. Why? Because that their experience is absolutely gold. A lot of times we want to look at business owners and we want to think, okay, well, they've done this, they've done that, they've made all this money, I can do it too. And you can. But you also want to look at the downside. And a lot of small businesses don't always succeed. So you want to look at those who failed and had life lessons. Number three is the most important to me. Go with an open mind. Don't assume that you know everything. Be willing to be a forever student. That being said, number two, choose a business structure. You have to choose a business structure that's right for you. Now, there are different business structures. There's nonprofit, sole proprietorship, LLC, LLP, S Corp. They're different types. If you all want a video about that, let me know and I can explain that more in detail. Because when I was speaking with the potential client, the potential client didn't understand the difference between a sole proprietorship, and we were talking about non-for-profit, and I think hers was more nonprofit, and she didn't understand that a nonprofit could still earn a profit. And I think a lot of people are kind of confused about that. So if you want, I can do a video about that as well. Number three, register the business. This is very important. When you're setting up your business, you kind of need to know, do you need to register your state, wherever you are? You need to register your business. That's important. Number four, obtain necessary permits and licenses. This is very important depending upon the type of business, especially if you're dealing with food, if you're dealing with people and you're dealing with parts of the body, um, anything medical, etc. You're going to need license and permits. And so that's why it's important to do your research. And let me go back to step one. And when I say research the business idea, this is the one thing I want you to really, really focus on. You really, before, because I had a client that wanted to do a business plan, but they were already well into their business. So it's good to start a business plan ahead of time. Why? Because the business plan is going to make you look at your business overall. It's going to make you look at the industry. It really is part of the research, the business idea. It really is the business plan. And business plans are very important. A lot of times they're intensive. They deal with the SWOT analysis, and SWOT is your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's going to make you really look at the business as a whole from your perspective, from the industry, competitors, etc., and asking yourself the most important question: is this worth my time? So, a business plan is very important. If you can work on a business plan, I say, okay, do it. But if not, I would say hire somebody to do it. The average price can be somewhere to 500, depending, to 2,000 and upwards of 20,000. I don't charge that much, but I do business plans. I absolutely love them. And they are really the type of tool that kind of your business plan ends up basically making you hold up a mirror to yourself and asking yourself the question, am I ready to do this? So that's good. So, yeah, let's go to number 5. Open a business bank account. It's kind of self explanatory, but this is what I will say. When you're opening a business bank account, you do need a checking account. You do need a savings account. You can start with those two for now. As your business grows and develops, you will want to have more than one. You may want to have an operating account for expenses. You may want to have one for payroll. You definitely want to have one for savings. And you got to treat your business like you would your personal, and you need to have at least 3 months to to at least a year's worth of business expenses. That's very important to build and save over time. Establish a bookkeeping system. Number 6. You definitely, in my opinion, I would want everyone to start out. You can use QuickBooks, FreshBooks. There are other things you can do. If you feel like your business is really small and you may not need that, or you don't feel that you can afford those expenses yet, I would say then, okay, but then track everything. You can use Excel and you can start out that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. In the beginning, especially if you're like, well, let me see where it goes, you can use Excel and that's fine. But I would say over time, you definitely want to establish a bookkeeping system. And I definitely recommend a bookkeeper. And I also do bookkeeping. So if you have questions or rates or things like that, you can go to my website, send me an email or drop a question and I'll answer. Number 7, create a business website. You definitely need to have a website. It's kind of self explanatory. You may want it if you're selling items. Some people say, well, if I'm selling services, do I necessarily need a website? And you do. Why? Because people, at the end of the day, I know that there's technology, we have social media, but people still need to feel comfortable with you. They need to know who you are. They need to know what the business is. Why does the business exist? What are some of your accomplishments? What are the things you've done? That helps a person get a feel for whether they want to do business with you or not. So you must have a business website. And my tip is, of course, you want it to look pretty and professional. But don't forget to add those personal human touches, whether it's a success story, you've helped a client, or you've sold products, get reviews on there. Anything you can do that can build consumer confidence, you want that. Number 8, develop a marketing plan. Marketing is not the easiest thing to do. It incorporates social media, but again, you need to have at least some sort of strategy. For me, marketing has been one of the hardest things I've had to do, but it is so worthwhile. And you really want to have a plan. Like, for example, if I'm engaging with clients, I have at least a process of how I do it, start to finish, etc. So you need to have a marketing plan because you really want to be able to put yourself out there. You really want to be able to get clients or customers depending on your business and what you're doing, or if you're, creating a nonprofit. And I've also been in the nonprofit sector for over a decade. So if you're starting a nonprofit and you need a little help or have questions, I can. Now, I do charge because it's important out here. You give information out, but sometimes I'm a business too, so I got to make sure that I charge. Um, the hardest thing. Let's go to number 9. Establish a pricing strategy. It is so very, very difficult to establish a pricing strategy. And the reason I say that is because as an entrepreneur, a lot of times pricing is not, and creating pricing models and coming up with them are not easy. But one thing you can do is look at your competitors. When it comes to pricing strategies, if you need help, that is something that I enjoy doing as well. I had a client and we were looking at pricing and going over their, cost of goods sold, and they did it their way. I said, well, let me just do mine. And we came up with very kind of similar numbers. But again, creating a pricing strategy is important. Why? Because you don't want to sell a product for less than what it costs you to either obtain it or make it, etc. You want to make sure that you're building in your profits, because if you're in business and you're not making money, then you don't need to be in business. So establishing a pricing strategy is important. And a lot of times with some of these things, it can be overwhelming and daunting. So one thing that I do offer is that I will come in and like consult with you, and just sometimes you need someone to talk to, get advice, or you need a listing, especially if you're starting out. And I do charge for that. But it's very, very important because a lot of times being an entrepreneur, I have felt this way myself. You feel like you are alone floating in the ocean. Sometimes you feel like you got a boat, but sometimes it'll really feel like the only thing you have is a piece of wood and you're floating. And so I know that sometimes for entrepreneurs, you can feel like you're alone. And so one of the services I do offer is just kind of giving some help with setting things up or talking through some ideas, because sometimes we just need that other person or other voice to bounce things off. And I'm really a good listener, so hire me. Okay, number 10, create an operations plan. Now, this is very, very important. You want to create a plan of how you're going to do business. So let's say you make products. Let's say you make, I just use widgets. I don't know why that was popular like in the 90s with stuff, widgets. I don't even know what on earth a widget is. I think a widget is actually something. But anyway, you want to create a plan of from obtaining the materials needed to get the widget to actually selling it, packaging, and getting it to the consumer. You really want to have a plan that goes from point A to Z, and you really want to look at that carefully. Packaging is just as important as the product that's inside of it. And don't worry if you don't get everything right over time. Some people are like, well, this doesn't. You're going to start out and you will improve your processes as time progresses. But it's great to have an operation strategy. How are you going to deal with refunds? How are you going to deal, when there are problems? You have to do so. For me, for example, with business dealing and being a consultant, you have to have a game plan for how you're going to deal with people who are not satisfied. If you're selling a product, you're going to have to deal. How do you deal with refunds? Are you going to allow partial refunds? Are you going to say there are no refunds? Are there special cases where you may have refunds, or you may just say, a person complains, I'm gonna give their money back and I'll never sell it again. However you want to do it, but you have to have a plan. You have to think about those things ahead of time. because it's very, very important to plan out those things ahead of time. If you're not thinking about those things, and I know a lot of people may be thinking, Sam, you're being negative. I'm not. You have to plan for the problems. You don't have to plan for the good times or even plan for the, well, you do need to plan for the success a little bit, especially if your business skyrockets and things happen really quickly. Then you kind of have to plan for that too. But you also have to plan because you're going to have difficult customers and difficult people at some point, and you have to have a process and a strategy for dealing with them, as long as also with having how you're going to do business from start to finish. Number 11, purchase necessary equipment. That 11 ties and can tie into number one about, research and having a business plan. So if you're doing a t-shirt business, for example, you may want to buy the printer. Now, those things are expensive. I think some of them, the higher end ones, can run up to maybe even 10, 20, 30,000. Please don't quote me on that. That's just a guess. But I have seen them that expensive. Or you may decide to outsource it. But again, you need to know what equipment you need for your business depending on what you're doing. Hire employees. It depends again on the business that you're doing. You may need to hire employees at some point, and you do want to have kind of a plan for that. How do you want to hire people? What do you need them to do? Etc. Or your business is growing, maybe you want a virtual assistant. Maybe that's all you need. Or maybe you need to have, depending if you're making products, you may need to have some people that you hire on the weekends or stuff like that. And they may be independent consultants or part time employees, and you're going to have to research that. Obtain insurance. You definitely are going to need some form of insurance. And again, depending on the type of business, that's why research is very important because you need to know what kind of insurance you need. Indemnification is very, very important to think about in business, and you really want to protect yourself. Number 14, which I do, is establish a customer service plan. And that is very, very important because you really, really, really want to have a plan for customer service. Why? Because at the end of the day, I don't care what anyone says, word of mouth still prevails. And if people have a pleasant experience with you, or even if they have something, a mishap, something happens, and you work to correct it, people will still say, I had this experience, but they fixed it so fast, they moved fast, they did this, they corrected this. I would buy from them again, even though we had this issue, because they worked hard. So customer service is very important. Now, the next one, develop a business plan. Now, I know I said that's number one, and it is 15 on this checklist. You can, but I personally believe it should be part of number one because the business plan is going to encapsulate all of the research, because I've written several business plans. I've done it for myself and I've done it for other people. Business plans really help you get into what industry am I in? What are my competitors? How much does this industry do? What are the barriers to entry? What are the things that could affect my business? It allows me to look at, and I mentioned it before, about the SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You have to be able to look at that. Look at your industry. Look at your competitors. What are they doing right? What are they doing wrong? So a business plan, even though this is number 15, I still believe it ties into number one because it is so important to do that research ahead of time before you really start to put money out there. And I'm going to come back to money in a second in a different way. Because the next thing is about securing financing. So, depending on the type of business that you're doing, you may need to secure financing. And you can do that through a bank loan, you can do that through friends, the crowdsourcing. I mean, there's sites depending on what you're doing, like WeFunder, God, what is some of the other Mainvest, and there are other crowdsourcing platforms depending upon your business idea and what you want to do. Now, I want to talk about money and this ties into secure financing, but you really want to have, and I realize on this it doesn't have it, but if I was going to say secure financing is part of it, but I would add another box of 17 and I would call it um, startup cost. Because when you're starting a business, we don't normally think about the startup cost and how much it actually costs to start said business. And you want to have all of these things in your head. And that's why I say having, outsourcing some of this, like having someone to write your business plan or having someone who can look up the industry for you and kind of give you a budget of what the startup cost is going to be. These are the things I've seen. Those things you can outsource and get someone to do if you don't have a lot of time or also if you need support. And what I've seen is, unfortunately, a lot of people who are starting out in business need that support, but oftentimes they don't have said funds to either start the business right away or to hire someone to help them. So, what I would suggest too is if you have a business or you want to start a business, but you're not 100% sure of what you want to do, I would suggest that you create a business account and not opening it in the business name yet, but if you have a checking account you're not using or a savings account you're not using, or if you want to use a tin jar you have in your house or the envelope method, whatever it is, and start putting money aside and start building. And the reason I say that is because these startup costs, a lot of times we don't budget for it and so we don't think about it. And a lot of times people don't know, like, I want to start this business, but they don't know what it costs to start the business yet. Um, and I think it's very important that you begin to at least put some money aside. And as you're building and saving, because you're going to need money for this, no matter what. You're starting a business. And the saying is, it always takes money to make money. So you're definitely going to need money. So start putting money aside, start thinking about it. If you can, hire someone. I'm available. You can talk to me or hire someone because it's just important. When you're doing a business, you need that support. And sometimes we have so many things as business owners going in our head and we're starting a business and we have a million different things that we need to do. Sometimes having that person or someone else that you can talk to, that you can bounce ideas off, or sometimes just talking things out with another person sometimes is all that you need. And I'm really all about helping people succeed. And I'll say this: happiness is contagious. And the beautiful thing about happiness, and I heard someone say it, is that it doesn't have to be your own. And starting a business, I know, can be very challenging, it can be very scary, but it can also be a very beautiful experience. And doing and being able to earn your own money is a beautiful thing. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it requires a lot of hard work. There are going to be times when you doubt yourself, where you say, why the hell am I doing this? What was I thinking? But in the long run, the fact that you are willing to take that step and go out there is a beautiful thing. So let me just do a quick recap of just an overview. Business plan. Definitely need one. Work on it if you can, but I suggest sometimes hiring somebody may be helpful or you work with someone in tandem, however you want to do it. Number two, think about the business plan, or not business plan, I'm sorry, the business model or business type, whether sole proprietorship, S Corp, LLC, LLP, whichever it may be that works best for you. Again, within the business plan, you're doing your research, but talk to other people, follow people who are doing what you're doing. Um, and it's also good if you have a network of people who are business owners. Reach out to them, talk to them, get their advice. People love to talk. And so ask them their advice of, what did you wish you learned, or knew before you started your first business? What's the greatest lesson you've learned since you started your business? You know, what are your regrets? You know, things like that, and get people talking. And what I want you to do is, if you have those in your network, let them talk. Do not interrupt them. Don't ask a question behind. Let them really talk and get their ideas out. And I'm telling you, experience is the best teacher. So with that being said, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Good luck on your endeavors. Like I said before, if you need me, I'm here. You can leave a message. You can go to samsfinancialcorner.com. The link will be in the description. And I look forward to being able to help you. See you, take care, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.